Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In this one I'll be briefly exploring the background of Tor Garadon, captain of the Imperial Fists Third Company and the first Space Marine in the chapter to cross the Rubicon Primaris. Now, despite that rather gleeful expression on his face, Tor Garadon is a famously serious individual. His parents in fact saw him as cursed by his stubborn and straightforward nature, and that was before he was even recruited into the Imperial Fists, so you can only imagine what he's like now. That said, his first few years in the chapter were met with remarkable success, with Garadon earning a number of high commendations for distinguishing himself on the battlefield and helping to secure victory after victory in the Emperor's name. However, despite all of his merit, a promotion just would not come Garadon's way, leaving him stuck in the rank of Battle Brother, despite all the promise he clearly demonstrated. As is often the case in the 41st millennium though, his fate changed during a particularly bloody conflict with the Necrons on the planet of Nasver. Having made a lightning-quick drop onto the planet, Garadon and the Third Company quickly found themselves stranded behind enemy lines, facing mass legions of Necron warriors and almost impenetrable monolith constructs. Without the support of their brothers or any way to extract themselves, the Third Company was slowly ground down by the relentless counter-advance of the Necron forces, and even the Third Company's leader, Captain Opara, fell during the brutal fighting. With the situation as dire as it was, Garadon realised what he had to do. Taking command of the 6 surviving members of his squad, he led his brothers in a number of daring rear attacks on the enemy lines. This action not only secured his squad survival, but the promotion that had eluded Garadon for so long. When Captain Julius Vogan took command of the Third Company, he promoted him to the rank of Veteran Sergeant and granted him a position in the Imperial Fists First Company, both in recognition of his remarkable actions and the potential Garadon clearly held. This new rank was soon put to the test in another brutal conflict for the Imperial Fists, the invasion of Taladorn. Led by Captain Lysander himself, a number of Imperial Fist companies, including the 3rd and the 5th, had pursued Warsmith Shontu of the Iron Warriors in a crusade of vengeance against the traitor Legion, and this conflict eventually found itself on the Imperial world of Taladorn. The Iron Warriors had actually invaded the planet several months before the Imperial Fists' arrival, conquering most of it and building a huge citadel called the Forge Heart, in which the Iron Warriors had grafted their slaves to the structure itself so as to feed their demon forges and work the treacherous mines. When the Imperial Fists finally caught up to their foes, they wasted no time. Lysander ordered a rapid strike on the citadel itself. This eventually saw the Third Company, which had fallen under the command of Garadon's superior Captain Vogan during the attack, sent into the forges to clear them out of Iron Warriors and other vile heresy. A running battle erupted in the depths of the Forge Heart as the Third Company quickly found itself fighting off a converging force of Iron Warriors and a Mauler Fiend demon engine. The close combat fighting was brutal, with bolters lighting up the forges like lightning, all while the Mauler Fiend lived up to its terrifying reputation, scouring through the Imperial Fist ranks like a sledgehammer through a particularly brightly painted melon. Captain Vogan was killed instantly by the Mauler Fiend, crushed under one of its massive fists, and Garadon, Vogan's second in command, immediately took command of the remainder of the company, directing a volley of las cannon fire that finally managed to put down the monstrosity for good. The rest of the conflict was just as brutal, and perhaps largely due to Captain Lysander's own refusal to accept aid from the Ultramarines, who had also arrived in the system. 90 Battle Brothers did not leave the planet with their lives. Perhaps worse still for Garadon, only a dozen members of the Third Company had survived the battle. For the Veteran Sergeant, this was unforgivable. He rebuked Lysander for his lack of leadership and contacted the Chapter Master of the Imperial Fists, Vladimir Pugh, to make his complaints known. This act would see Lysander recall to the Phalanx, the chapter's ancient fortress monastery, to answer for his decisions and to pay any cost that followed. Now, so far in the story, you may be feeling that the Imperial Fists Third Company has had it exceedingly rough. However, their worst defeat was to come during the siege of Hydra Cordatus, which you can read about in Graham McNeil's book Storm of Iron, but there will be a few brief spoilers here, so bear that in mind. The Iron Warriors had attacked a citadel on the Forge World, which, unbeknownst to many, housed active Imperial Fist gene seed. Not only was this an exceedingly rare essence for the creation of new Space Marines, but there was also no telling what purposes the Iron Warriors may have wished to use it for. Consequently, the entire Third Company of the Imperial Fist, the only company close enough to react, fully deployed to the planet in an attempt to prevent such a valuable resource falling into Chaos's hands. However, tragically for the Imperium and the chapter, the Iron Warrior siege was successful, and the entire Third Company was wiped out. Not a single Battle Brother survived. Worse than that, generations of Adeptus Astartes essence were stolen by their most hated enemies, of which a large part eventually found itself in the vile hands of Abaddon the Despoiler. This is where Tor Garadon steps in once again, for he was given the task of rebuilding the entire Third Company and was granted the rank of captain for this purpose. Many veterans from other parts of the chapter offered to join Garadon in this new company, and he gratefully accepted, using their decades of insights and skills to train the fresh ranks of the Imperial Fists on the apparent safety of the Phalanx. And yet, this period was not particularly peaceful for the Third Company either. Warsmith Shontu managed to do something that was once thought unthinkable and assault the Phalanx while it was undermanned and orbiting over Terra. Garadon and his force attempted to defend the vessel, for it clung perilously low in orbit, and it would have proven beyond devastating should it be pushed into a collision course with a location like the Imperial Palace. However, the Third Company was not alone that day. The Legion of the Damned, the mythical Spectre Legion of Space Marines, came to their aid, and together they managed to push back the Chaos forces secreted throughout the vessel. For Garadon, this was a clear sign that the fight needed to be taken to the forces of Chaos, and so he led his company and the legendary Orbital Fortress Monastery to Cadia, where he battled not only the forces of Abaddon's Black Crusade, but succeeded in defeating an equally legendary vessel, a Blackstone Fortress. Of course, the attempt to liberate Cadia failed, a defeat shared by the Imperium as a whole, but for Tor Garadon, it is clearly a burden he feels he must bear on much stronger shoulders. For that reason, he has now taken a journey few ever have, crossing the Rubicon Primaris and becoming something beyond even a Space Marine. Whatever happens next, it will no doubt shape the fate and fortune of the Imperial Fists and Garadon's Third Company for years to come.